How's it going, everybody? Nerd Squatch here, and today I'm going to do something a little different for you. I'm going to be doing a review video, and I'm going to be reviewing a game, one of the top rated games coming out of 2020 called Hades. It is a roguelike based on Greek mythology, and I have completely fallen in love with this game. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this review. First things first, Hades is a roguelike action role-playing video game developed by Supergiant Games. It came out September 17th, 2020 for Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, as well as the Nintendo Switch. Now, at first glance, seeing as how Hades is a roguelike, it's not going to feel like it's dramatically different from most other roguelikes out there, but that's just at first glance. As you play through the game, you're going to notice that not just it's all Greek mythology based, but it has a very unique sense to it. As you go through these different runs to try and beat the game, there is a pretty deep story to it. Whenever you first meet Zagreus, he's just trying to get out of Hades. He wants to see the surface world. He doesn't like being trapped in Hades. He doesn't like being trapped in the underworld. So he's just trying to get out. But as you go through, you find that there's a family secret of sorts. And he starts to figure out what this family secret is. I don't really want to ruin any of the plot here, just in case you do end up picking it up and playing it. But I feel like the way that they added this narrative to the game makes it a little bit different. And the fact that it's a roguelike, you're not going to be able to say, beat the game one time and have the whole story. In fact, you're going to have to beat it several times. And to be specific, you're going to have to beat it 11 times just to get the core story out of the way. That's not even all of the narrative that can be supplied by this game. You're going to actually have an epilogue that has a lot more story that intertwines between all of the supporting characters that you're going to meet throughout the game. Whether it be Achilles, the other gods from Olympus, Chaos, Megara, or any of the servants in the house. Now, the way the game plays and feels, you're going to see a lot of those classic hallmarks from the roguelike genre of video games. But when it comes down to the way the game actually feels and controls, I feel like they're very tight, very responsive. I've noticed in some other games, and it may just been at the time that I was playing them, like for instance Dead Cells, it seemed like there were times where the controls were just a hair bit sluggish. It seems like the response time that I get out of the controls in Hades are always on point, and I'm absolutely happy and thrilled about that. But as for some of these hallmarks that you would see in other roguelikes, say each time you go through a run, you're going to have different circumstances, even if you're going through an area that you've previously been to on an earlier run. You've noticed at this point that I have met with Dionysus twice, and I'm currently meeting with Chaos. These gods, every time you meet them, are going to have a set of 3 boons that you can pick from, and they're all picked from a pool that each god can offer. Now, there's also going to be a different rarity level to each of these boons as you find them. Another layer to this is the weapons that Zagreus can start each run out with. As you unlock the weapons, you'll get a different variation that can then mix in with each of these boons that you find from these gods randomly as you go through these runs. But each one of the weapons also has subtypes that you can eventually unlock as you start to, complete more and more runs through the game. One of the other things I would like to point out that harkens back to the narrative, as you go through and you talk to these gods and you're blessed with their boons, there are rare times where if you have a boon from one god and you meet with another god later in the run, those two gods will actually have a conversation with you. And you have the option of replacing a boon from the first god with the second god, or you can combine 2 boons from these 2 gods into one super boon. And they're usually pretty good and can be a game changer for whatever run you're on. One other thing that drew me into this was the way that the game just looks. The way that they went with the art style is just absolutely great. I love this comic book style appearance to it. Now, when I say comic book, I'm not saying, of course, that it looks like something that you would see from Borderlands. But it is bright, flashy colors in what I would assume is supposed to be a dark, dingy, and somewhat depressing environment. I mean, it's supposed to be the underworld, the place of, punishment and eternal damnation, if you will. But they went with this really good, vibrant feel to the game. When it comes down to each area, though, they do have their own unique appearance and feel that's provided by the way each of them looks. So there's going to be the House of Hades, which has a very, inside, maybe subterranean feel to what you would assume is a Roman or Greek god's abode. But then whenever you get into Tartarus, it almost feels like a hellish city. And then so on and so forth as you ascend upward out of the center of the underworld. Each area has a unique feel to it. Like the area after Tartarus is supposed to be rivers of fire and lava. And then you go on to Elysium, which is supposed to be where the favored dead reside. So it looks like green pastures, there's shrubbery, there's not rivers of fire. It actually looks like rivers of fog. But it's a much more beautiful and acceptable area to look at. And then you have the temple, which is basically the gateway into the underworld, but it's overridden by these vermin that detest the gods. And it has its own unique look and feel to it. Even though whenever you're actually talking with the gods, you don't see like motion per se like you would see from Zagreus on the screen right now. You actually just see like a still shot, and sometimes you'll see some different still shots that portray that god talking with surprise or agitation. But even the artwork in those still shots just looks great. They really captured the feel of each one of the gods in these still shots. When it comes to the way the game sounds, I feel like they hit the nail on the head when it comes to each unique area within the game. It has its own sounds to it. It has its own soundtrack. Each of the things that's going on in that area just sounds different, like the traps going off, the background ambient noise. All of that sounds really good, and it does make each area feel a little bit more unique. The voice acting for the game is also done very superbly, if I may say. I do have one minor issue with it, though. It seems like it's almost just right on the spot, but there's just something that makes me feel like it's just a little off. Now, I'm not saying they did a bad job by any means at all. It just seems like there's something missing, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But it does sound great, and I overall have no real complaints about the way that the game sounds as far as music, ambient noise, voice acting, anything like that at all. As with any game that you're going to be putting money into, you want to make sure that it's not going to be something that you spend, $65, or in some cases when you buy limited editions of the game, you're spending over $100, in certain cases over $200, and you play it once, and then you're just bummed because you played it once. Even if it was a stellar experience while you played it, I mean, who wants to pay, $100 for a game, or even $65, let's be real, for a game and just play it once? Nobody wants to do that. So I feel like multiplayer games have more replayability. So when it comes down to these single player games, it's important to feel like you're getting your money's worth out of it. When it comes to the replayability for Hades, you are going to have to complete 11 runs, which isn't exactly an easy task, before you even complete the narrative. But as you go through, it will get harder. After you complete so many runs, you're going to have what's known as a pact of punishment put on you, where you're going to have your choices weigh into how the run is going to be made difficult for you. Something like enemies spawn with more armor and unique attacks, even the bosses. More enemies spawn with more health, so on and so forth. But that just adds another layer of replayability to me. If the game stays the same difficulty throughout the entire time I play it, I might get pretty bored with it pretty quickly. But I feel like Hades does a great job in its replayability. Not just because you have to complete the game 11 times essentially to get all of the narrative, but being able to go in and have a different experience every time you start or run, but having it be harder or easier depending on what weapon you choose, what boons you manage to find from the gods, and how you make the game difficult on yourself. I feel like they did a great job in replayability. This game wasn't even $65, and I feel like it was worth every bit of $65. The game does a great job overall, and I would go ahead and say that it is probably one of the best games for replayability that came out in 2020. Now, I'm not going to rate any of the games that I review on this channel with a star system or a numerical system saying it's 4 stars out of 4 stars or it's a 10 out of 10. No, I'm going to cut right to the point with this one. Either I'm going to tell you, don't waste your time, maybe you should wait to play it, or you should definitely play it right now. And as far as Hades goes, I'm going to say, go ahead and play it right now. This game was great, it was not expensive. I think I paid $15 for it because it was on deals at the time. I think it sells for $25 as of right now on both the Switch and PC. I think that you're going to get your money's worth out of it just in the first 20 hours of it, but you're going to play probably far beyond 20 hours. I know I'm over 50 with it right now. So definitely pick it up, give it a try. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end, but I greatly appreciate you guys stopping by. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow those links that I have down in the video description to follow me and some of my good friends on Twitch. We stream pretty regularly. I know that my friend Caked with Keepy does on Twitch. He usually plays a lot of Call of Duty, basically playing the Battle Royale mode. But he's pretty good at it, and he also does some Rocket League. You can also look up my friend Coleman, who does a lot of stuff like Minecraft, Phasmophobia, as well as his wife, Blood Angel. She absolutely loves Phasmophobia. So if you're into scary games, go give them a watch on Twitch. And just another little shout out to probably my best friend in the world, Denisha Marie. Her and her husband love to play games like Fall Guys, Stardew Valley, and The Forest. So if any of those things really tickle your fancy, go ahead and give them a follow on Twitch. I will have those links down in the video description again, guys. Thanks for stopping by.